Now, next is part of our one-on-one interview with one of the most dynamic entrepreneurs in the TV industry today. His name, you probably already know him, Byron Allen, Chairman and CEO of the Allen Media Group, along with Entertainment Studios. And this interview is going to be conducted by Natasha Alford. She is an award-winning journalist and on-air talent, as well as Vice President for Digital Content at the Riots.
It's so great to be here at Natpe 2021. Welcome. Wherever you are tuning in from, you are in the right place for this special conversation with Mr. Byron Allen. My name is Natasha Alford, and I'm Vice President of Digital Content at thegrio.com. But before we get into this incredible conversation, we have to tell you about Mr. Allen's journey. As a media entrepreneur, he started in comedy, a teenager who pitched jokes for comedians like Jimmy Walker, Jay Leno, and David Letterman. And he became the youngest comedian to appear on The Tonight Show. In 1993, he began his television production career by founding Entertainment Studios. Headquartered in LA, the company has offices in New York, Chicago, Atlanta, and Raleigh. ES owns numerous ABC, NBC, CBS, Fox network affiliate television stations, and 8 24-hour HD TV networks, as well as streaming services with nearly 180 million subscribers, including the Weather Channel, Pets.tv, and Comedy.tv. Entertainment Studios will also add to its network the Weather Channel and Espanol in 2021. Mr. Allen is also the proud owner of the Griot, a digital network dedicated to African-American news and entertainment. And now it's my pleasure to welcome the founder, chairman, and CEO of Allen Media Group and Entertainment Studios, also my boss and mentor, Mr. Byron Allen. Welcome, Byron.
Great to see you, Natasha. Thank you so much. That's a great intro. It makes my mother proud every time. So I really appreciate it.
It's a great story. And, you know, even in these tough times for so many people, we have to acknowledge the ways in which the pandemic has changed our world. You have managed to build a company that has thrived throughout all of these changes. And so I'd like to start there. Tell us a little bit about how you have weathered the storm, particularly in the past year, with so many changes in media, and why streaming and local content is such a central part of that.
You know, we're really fortunate, you know, in a very unfortunate situation. This pandemic, this global pandemic, is absolutely horrific. The lives that are being lost, impacted, the businesses that will be lost forever. We just happen to be very fortunate. We're in the national and local news and information business. And this is essential information as it relates to what's going on in your community, what's happening with COVID-19. And it's essential to protect your family, to protect yourselves, and protect your jobs and your businesses. So we just happen to be in a very good business. And that's the business we're in. We're in the news business. So that's just a gift from God for that particular scenario. And I have to tell you, you know, we are proud. We're proud to have that responsibility of serving the news. We really work every day to be number one or number two in news in our markets. We believe that news is something that has to be embraced and cherished by the communities, by government regulators. You can't invest enough in news, especially local news, because that's what really matters to you, what's happening down the street. Obviously, you need to have your national news, but we can't drop the ball on localism, because you have to know everything there is to know, especially in a situation like we're in now with this pandemic. When we bought the Weather Channel, we were really fortunate that we got a phenomenal gift. And that gift was a streaming service called Local Now. And Local Now is a streaming service that uses proprietary technology that provides local news, weather, sports, and traffic, geofence to your zip code. And that is very unique. And it uses artificial intelligence to gather all of the sources of content, aggregate it, and feed it to you on all of your devices. And it's really unique because it's in real time and it is geofence to your zip code. So when we're having news events like what happened at the Capitol, we were the only streaming service that was able to provide you that content for free. It's an AVOD. Now, when I bought the Weather Channel and they were trying to do Local Now, they were trying to get people to pay for it, whatever it was, $4.99, $9.99 as an SVOD. And I said, this is a phenomenal idea. This is a phenomenal platform. We're not going to do it as an SVOD and try and get people to pay for it. I think this is the type of information that should be for free, available to everyone. And we're going to augment it and add movies and TV shows and documentaries and channels. And we're going to do it all for free. And so now what you're seeing when you go to Local Now, this super hyper local news and information, geofence to your zip code, and premium content, movies and TV shows and documentaries and channels. And one of my favorites is Johnny Carson channel, because I was, as you said, the youngest comedian to do the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. And we have people.tv there, and we have Kevin Hart has a channel, and we have everything, cooking channels, just a Bloomberg, a lot of good stuff. And it's free. And I think that's very important that people have access to, essential news and information, premium content for zero. And that's what Local Now is. So we're very, very proud of our streaming service.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Living in Brooklyn, I know when I turn on my streaming service, Local Now is a channel and I can figure out what the weather is, whatever it will be that day. And you've also made an effort in investing in some documentaries. We just actually published a documentary that will be on Local Now and be free. So I think that's wonderful. I'm really interested in learning about why you think streaming is such a great investment. Right? Versus we know that you've had a lot of success in traditional television, whether it be broadcasting or big blockbuster films. But what is it about streaming in these times that is so appealing? And why do you think so many more people are tuning in?
Well, I'm not of the belief that, it's instead of. I'm in the belief that it's additive. It's just like when we were coming along and they were saying, well, the movie business is going to get wiped out by radio and TV, and VHS is going to wipe out movies, and DVD is going to wipe out movies and TV. And it all ends up being additive. And I think, there's a place for obviously movies and obviously radio and television and streaming. And I think it's collectively, it's going to make everything better. Clearly, streaming is the way to go. My kids will probably never have a cable bill. So
they're cutting the cord already.
I already look like a caveman to them. Like they just don't like, what are you doing? So I think that we love the technology. We love the fact that it's intuitive. That to your point, if you go there and you watch a documentary, we're able to recommend other documentaries. We know we start to understand your taste. Artificial intelligence is really key as it's integrated with content. It's really interesting because it's almost like it becomes an extension of you. It starts to help you think and recommend. Those recommendation engines are really quite strong. And I think that in this particular space, what we're seeing is that folks haven't had the opportunity to really get the premium content they want for free. And that's how I grew up. When I grew up, I was watching ABC, NBC, CBS. We never paid for that. That's how we grew up. And over time, it developed into a different business model. And I thought, here's something that's kind of old, but it's new, where we can give you that local news and information, but give you that premium content and do it in the way of streaming, because at the end of the day, that's not going away. And it's only going to continue to grow. And it's only going to be mobile worldwide. And as you approach 8-9 billion people on this planet, and half of them are connected, now the question is, who's going to engage them, inform them, entertain them? And that's what we're doing. We're chasing that. We're chasing that opportunity to feed the world the content they're looking for. I would say this is very unique. 100 years ago, it was the Industrial Revolution. And what fueled the Industrial Revolution was oil, gas and oil. And today, it's the digital revolution. And what's fueling the digital revolution is content, and content is the new gas and oil. And I'm chasing John D. Rockefeller. What Rockefeller did for the industrial revolution, I want to do for the digital revolution. And that's really why we are interested in all platforms, whether it's linear cable, over the air broadcast, or direct to the consumer streaming. At the end of the day, they're just platforms, but they don't have a lot of value until our content flows through those platforms. So we're interested in all platforms.
Definitely. And you mentioned technology. I actually want to take a step back and talk about your historic acquisition of the Weather Channel. First, just what went into you deciding to acquire the Weather Channel, but also how the Weather Channel is using a technology that really you can't find everywhere to tell stories and make these really compelling shows that people want to tune into, that help them to understand the world. So tell us a little bit about that.
The Weather Channel, I mean, that has been a wonderful acquisition for us, the Weather Channel. Uh, Weather matters, and it matters in a big way. So we're excited about that acquisition and how it came about, and I'm happy that we were able to capture it. Climate change and global warming is real, and it's one of the greatest threats to humankind, and it will continue to be, especially if we don't address it properly. And I can honestly say that we are not addressing it properly, climate change and global warming in any way whatsoever. I mean, just simply because the oceans were 2 degrees hotter off the coast of Africa, we just experienced our greatest hurricane season in over 150 years, simply because we were 2 degrees hotter off the coast of Africa. That's huge. That's a game changer. You don't want to know what's in those icebergs that have been there for many, many years. And as we melt those icebergs, we're calling it Pandora's ice. You are releasing millions of viruses into the system, into the ecosystem that we've never had to share. We've never had to share the planet with, and that's going to be a problem. That's a big problem. Like we're dealing with COVID-19 right now, but there are over 200 million viruses that don't have a name that we haven't dealt with. And we as a society, we have to come together. We have to acknowledge climate change. We have to acknowledge global warming, and we have to acknowledge the impact, because right now people don't quite understand what those words mean. Well, as we have more and more severe weather events, it's going to create more weather refugees. And as you create weather refugees, you're going to have people trying to move from a place they can no longer inhabit, and they're going to move across borders, and they're going to try and move into other areas. And as they try and move into other areas, that's going to create tension. That's going to create wars. That's going to create genocide. And you're going to start to see that more often than not. You're going to see food shortages because the weather has come in and taken out the food supply. And that's going to be a big issue, because the weather will increase the amount of food insecurity that we already have. You're going to see costs go up because cotton is going to cost more. Things are going to cost more because of the impact of weather. And you're going to have more epidemics and pandemics, because you're going to start to push the species and animals closer to the food chain. And as you get them closer to our food chain, that's going to release other issues in terms of viruses. And God forbid you have a virus that has a higher mortality rate than COVID-19. COVID-19 is horrible, but thank God it doesn't have the mortality rate of the Ebola virus, which is much higher than COVID-19. Like, you come into contact with that, you're dead 2-3 days later, and it's highly contagious. So global warming and climate change, people need to understand what that means and why it's a real threat to humankind. It's our greatest threat. Well, we at the Weather Channel have said, look, we're going to take the lead on informing people and getting people engaged and having people understand what it means and what they can do to make sure that we survive it. But it's not a question of whether or not it's there. It's not a question of whether or not it's a threat. You're living it. You're already experiencing it. Whether these, severe winters or floods or hurricanes or heat waves or viruses now moving closer to you because the rainforest is catching on fire, or we can't put out fires on the west coast of America because it's just on and on and on. So we have got to address this because the system is speaking to us loudly and clearly. Planet Earth will be here. It will always be here. The question is, will human beings be here to inhabit planet Earth? And if we don't get our act together, planet Earth is going to flush us out of the system like food poisoning. And right now, we are food poisoning. And like all other food poisoning, somehow, some way, and we know how food poisoning gets flushed out of our systems, we're going to get flushed out. And
Yeah.
before we get flushed out, we need to address this and address it in an aggressive manner. And
Yeah.
so I love having the Weather Channel so we can speak to that, address it, have people understand it, and embrace it, engage it, and combat it. And the Weather Channel is just a great opportunity. And also, I think the other thing with me buying the Weather Channel, it's a great moment, in my opinion, in American history. It shows progress. First of all, you have these news organizations, and the news organizations are typically owned by big corporations, whether it's CNN owned by AT&T, or MSNBC owned by NBC Universal Comcast, or Fox News owned by News Corp, and I own the Weather Channel. Well, there's two big wins there for the country. Number one, it's an independent, not a conglomerate. And number two, I happen to be African American. And that's a big win for the country because I'm the first African American to own a major news outlet in America. And hopefully, as a country, we can be proud of that. And I'm certainly proud of that for our country. And, I think we have to really, understand that that's important to have independence in terms of independent voices, because that's how you have a real democracy in our country, because all of our voices need to be heard, and all of our voices need to be widely heard, and we all need to have a seat at the table. And that's why another reason why it's important for me to own Big Four network affiliates. I happen to be the only African American in the country today to own Big Four network affiliates: ABC, NBC, CBS, and Fox. Hopefully that will change in the future. I believe it will. But I think I don't think we're doing ourselves a good service that I am the only person of color to own Big Four network affiliates in America. Uh, a better country, a stronger country, is when everybody is engaged and everybody has equity and a seat at the table. And a real democracy is when we're all leaning in and we're all sharing our viewpoints, because at the end of the day, through this collaboration, we are going to have, whether it's a better company or a better country, it's always going to be better through diversity and engagement and true sharing of ideas.
Right. This is ultimately one America, right? And it requires
One America.
all of us to thrive. We can't leave anyone behind. You said a lot of really powerful things. It's hard for me to pick which one I want to focus on next. But what I'm hearing with the Weather Channel first is that this is essential content, right? So this is not just about streaming or tuning into whatever is entertaining, but this is truly a matter of life for so many people who will be watching this content. And of course, you have immersive reality and all of these other technological aspects that you're incorporating into the development of this content that makes it really engaging. Kind of moving into your next point about the diversity of voices and creating a seat at the table. Let's talk about the Grio.tv.
Yeah.
And this pending, we have a Grio mobile app that will also be joining the Entertainment Studios family. Why was it important to launch this endeavor with this particular network? And again, this will also be available to stream.
Yeah, you know what? And I want to talk about that. But there's one little thing I want to add on about the
Sure.
web channel I think is really important.
Mhm.
It's interesting. When I bought the Weather Channel, there were a number of folks who were, on Wall Street who poo-pooed the Weather Channel and cable networks in general. And I was happy that they made that mistake. And I call it the Wall Street analysis paralysis. And they made a huge mistake, and it was my game. And the way Wall Street looked at the Weather Channels, they looked at it as a cable network. And I said, you know what? That's a huge mistake. It's not a cable network. It's a technology platform. And it is the only, we'll call it this, cable network, if you call it a cable network, that has 3,500 star boxes at the cable head ends and the satellite head ends, which allows us to provide you your weather geofence to your zip code. That's a technology platform. That is that's why it's really unique. It's truly special, the Weather Channel, and it's been around 40 years. As a matter of fact, it's the only cable network that's hardwired into the Pentagon as a matter of national security.
Wow.
So I said, hey, Wall Street, I'm not sure you got this one right. This is not a cable network. This is a technology platform, and it's also essential as a part of national security. So I just wanted to share that in terms of just talking about the channel and the responsibility of owning and managing that, and how seriously we take it. And it is a part of our national security, and how proud we are to have that. So now on the griot is something that I think is really very important. The griot, throughout our history as African Americans in this country, we've never owned and controlled our networks. Now, what I've said is that it's important that we own it, that we control it. And I had a guy ask me once, I had a white guy, he asked me, he said, why is it so important for you to own it? Why is it so important for ownership versus targeted? And, because there are a lot of targeted African-American platforms that are not owned by Black people, but they're owned and controlled by white people.
A lot of people don't know that difference either. They wouldn't know when they're
They
watching.
wouldn't know
Right.
until we have that conversation, right? That what's owned and what's targeted in terms of Black, plenty of Black targeted, nothing Black owned. So what I said was, I'm glad you asked that question, because I just had my daughter. I said, you have a daughter same age as my daughter. I said, let me ask you, as a white man, are you comfortable with me as a Black man controlling your daughter's image, controlling how she's produced, controlling how she's depicted, controlling how she's seen around the world, which ultimately controls her self-esteem and how she feels about herself? Are you comfortable with me as a Black man having that kind of control over your white daughter? And he said no. And I said, why would you expect anything different from me? And now that my daughter is here, and now that my daughter's born, I have to have a seat at the table, because I'm going to be a part of the landscape that helps to determine how she is seen around the world, how she sees herself, and how she develops her own self-esteem. And a lot of that is media. So I said, that's the difference. I said, look, there are folks out there that will give me talk shows all day long, hosted by white guys, where I have Black guys dancing about the fact that the report came back and they're not the baby's dad. Fine, that's your content. You do what you do. You produce that. But the Black men I know, my daddy, my granddaddy, myself, we're not dancing about the fact that we're not the baby daddy, or we don't have to take care of that baby. But there's television that produces 6 hours a day of that image. And that is what it is. But that's not a true reflection of me or most of the people I know who look like me. But if you notice, here's a company that I started from my dining room table 28 years ago. And it's not a coincidence that the images that I've put forth of women, because I'm raised by my mom, a single mother, and people of color, are very strong, positive images, right? So I put court shows on the air. Judge Ross, Judge Maybelline, Judge Hatchett, Judge Karen, and Judge Christina Perez.
Award winning, by the way.
Award-winning Judge Christina Perez, and a nominated some of the other judges. So
Multiple.
right, multiple nominations. So that's five judges, African American, Latina, Black and brown, and they're judges, and they're on 5-10 hours a day because they're running 2 hours a day in some cases. Those are positive, strong images that you want, people of color to see. Those are the images I want my children to see. You are an attorney. You are a judge. You are a legal scholar. That's important. That's the difference when it's Black owned versus Black targeted. And I felt it was important that as we are now, kicking off into 2021, that we had something for the very first time that was Black owned. And what I found was a lot of times, even though it's white owned, you'll have Black management constantly trying to get white ownership and upper white management to understand why this is important to Black people, what this means to Black people, who these people are, and what those people mean to Black people. It's that unbelievable, friction of working 2 and 3 times harder, constantly explaining yourself to white America. Mm-hmm. And I thought, what kind of content, how much better it can be if you're not spending half your time trying to explain yourself to somebody. So I say to white America, how much harder would it be for you if you were always trying to explain yourself to someone about you and your experience and what you saw and how you were raised and what this means to you and your family and your community? That's that difference between Black owned and Black targeted. Now, somebody wrote an article that you sent to me, and I got to tell you, I said, this is what it's all about. And it was somebody in our newsroom in the Griot who went to Northwestern. And she was talking about all the people who work at the Griot, and she's African American, and all the people who are African American working at the Griot from Northwestern. And she said, it's the first time in my life I didn't have to explain myself. I didn't have to explain who I am and what's important to me. And she says, we're moving through it like it's just secondhand, like breathing. And that's the dynamic that I wanted to create with the Griot, with our networks. There's a big difference between owned and targeted. And you have to have that seat at the table. And that's a unique moment, because I'm not really here to just, I've always said, look, my mission is to build the world's biggest media company. That's what I've dedicated my life to. That's what I work towards every day, to build the world's biggest media company. And I'm chasing John D. Rockefeller. I'm chasing Henry Ford. I'm chasing Andrew Carnegie. I'm chasing the great industrialists, but in the digital space. But in doing so, I'm doing it and making the world better. So that's important. I don't want to be just the biggest and the best. I want to be the biggest, the best, and make the world, especially America, better. So why did I buy the Griot? When I bought the Griot was losing, it still loses money, but the Griot only had about 1 million monthly active users. Mm-hmm. And through investment, we've gotten it to over 10 million monthly active users and 10.5 million monthly active users. But why did I buy it? Because I wanted to have a direct relationship with Black America. And so I could have open, candid conversations with Black America to make a Black America better. And you've been very much a part of those conversations. And pretty much every time I've been there, you've been right there with me. And I've said, hey, Black America, you need to understand some things. Number one, Black people died for you to have the right to vote. Okay? Die. lynched every day, gone through unbelievable hell for you to have the right to vote. There's no scenario in which you cannot vote.
Mhm.
And I've had to say to Black American, get Black American to understand is that you are beautiful, you are bold, but now you have to be brilliant. And you can't just be beautiful and bold. You got to be beautiful, bold, and brilliant. And here's how you are beautiful, bold, and brilliant. First step, you need to understand who you are. You need to understand that the white vote is split 50-50, and that you, the Black vote, you're the most powerful vote in America because you are the deciding vote. And you have to understand that power in yourself. And you have got to lean in and vote. Like voting should be like breathing for you. It's not a question, are you going to breathe? Of course, you're going to take your next breath. So we shouldn't even be talking about voting. That's just like breathing. I need you to study the politicians. I need you to donate to those politicians that you vetted and you appreciate. And then I need you to hold those politicians accountable. And that's how we're going to make America truly great. When
And we have
everyone is
content to support that. For our viewers who are watching this conversation,
all
Byron is
there,
not just talking about strategies, talking about content that we created to support that vision.
every weekend I did a webinar where I did a webinar about Black America votes, where you have to vote. You have to lean in and you have to vet. You have to be a part of the political process. You have to hold your politicians are nothing more than temporary hired help. That's it. And you have to understand they work for you. And you need to have expectations for them, and you need to have goals for them, and you need to have timetables for them, and you need to call them out. You know, I was a big supporter of President Obama, and I was supporting Senator Obama before he became President Obama. I was supporting him before people knew his name. And then at one point, I became a big critic of President Obama because I felt he wasn't doing enough for Black people. Like, you need to make sure that we're getting bank loans, and we're not, because that is what is funding genocide against Black America. We're not getting access to capital. And you need to make sure that our education is improved, because that's a threat to American security. We don't have enough intellectual capital in America to compete globally. And it was a big deal. A lot of people were upset with me, especially in the Black community as a Black man, that I would criticize the first Black president of the United States, because I'm like, well, I'm gonna hold everybody accountable. Black, white, I don't care. If you're not doing enough for the American people, and especially Black people, the furthest left behind, you're gonna hear from me. And you're not gonna like what I'm gonna say. And I'm gonna say it loud. I'm gonna be very clear. I'm gonna be very vocal. And it's gonna be really uncomfortable. And I'm gonna be consistent about it, because we have to do better. And we have to address education and climate change and all sorts of things. That's why I bought the grill, because I wanted to make sure I had a direct relationship with most of Black America. And that's what the grill has given me, to have that relationship with everybody and say, this is how we should be thinking. This politician doesn't work for us, and you need to hold this politician accountable. This policy doesn't work for us. We as Black Americans, we're not leaning in enough on education. We have to make sure that that is the most important thing. Like, look, my mother got pregnant with me when she was 16 years old. Mm. And so you're talking about a teenage Black girl in Detroit, Michigan at 16 pregnant. And there were a lot of people who told her, get rid of that baby. That was the talk. And she had me in April of 61. I got lucky, thank God. And my mother and I left Detroit in 68 because of the riots and from the assassination of Martin Luther King. And the military took over my neighborhood. And I was looking down the barrel of a tank, and bayonets and German Shepherd dogs. They just locked my neighborhood down when they murdered Martin Luther King. And I knew then that things were very different for me. At that moment, that's as a child, I was 7 years old, I lost my innocence. I felt that was the moment I went from being a little boy to a man and a child of war. And my mother and I, you know, because I asked, I was like, why did they kill him? And my grandmother, and they were like, they hate us. You know, they hate us because they're racist. They hate us because they don't think we deserve anything. They hate us simply because we're Black. And when you say that to your 7-year-old child, that has a profound impact. And I'm sitting there and I'm watching my city up in flames and it's burning up. And I'm like, why does white America hate us? What have we done? Why is this, what didn't we build this together? My mother and I go to LA for a 2-week vacation and we ended up staying. And my mom ends up getting into UCLA. There was a wonderful man there, and Mr. Hirschfeld, and he helped my mom get into UCLA. He started the film and TV program at UCLA and said, no, this is a really bright young lady. And thank God she got into UCLA, because in getting into UCLA, she ended up getting her master's degree in cinema TV production. And because she was there working on her master's degree, she was able to go to NBC and ask for a job. And when she asked for the job, they said no. And she asked the most important question that changed our lives forever. She said, do you have an intern programship? And they said, no, we do not. And she said, will you start one with me? And they said, yes.
Wow.
And she started working at NBC for free. And because she could not afford childcare, she brought me with her. And I just sat in the corner and I watched them make television. I literally, as a child, 10, 12 years old, 13 years old, I'm watching Johnny Carson do The Tonight Show. I'm just sitting in the audience. I'm watching him rehearse. I'm watching Bob Hope do his specials. I'm watching Red Fox tape Sanford and Son, and Freddie Prinze do Cheek on the Man. I'm watching Flip Wilson do the Flip Wilson Show. And I'm watching George Burns do his special. I'm watching a young sportscaster do the local news, Bryant Gumbel, and a local weatherman do the weather, Pat Sajak, before the Today Show and before Wheel of Fortune. And I'm watching people write, produce, direct, and I'm watching people pull the cables and move the camera and light. And I thought, wow, what a wonderful way to go through life, making people laugh and making television. And I said, this is what I'm doing with my life. I'm going to be a comedian, which is why I ended up being the youngest comic to do the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. And I'm going to produce television shows. And my mother said to me, you don't have to just produce television shows. You can own the network. And she said that to me when I was like 11 years old. And I go, I own the network? She goes, you can be bigger than this. And I thought, okay. And that's how fortunate I was to have a mother who was, really constantly instilled confidence in me, and to see the world bigger than me, and to see the world bigger than anybody else, and to understand the value of education. So I know that we have to lean in on America, and we have to lean in on Black America, Brown America, Hispanic America, education, education, education. And through education, it's a pathway to a better life, and it's a pathway to a better America. I mean, look at you. You went to Northwestern, and then you went to Harvard. So, I mean, your life and the doors that have opened to you because you went to Harvard. And that's something that we have to make available to every American, especially Black and Brown people, the furthest left behind. So that's why the Griot is important to me, and having it as a website and having it as a network, because when I don't just want these platforms, I want these platforms so I can make us better, stronger, the entire country. Because one thing we don't think about is that we really are the small. As a country, we're a little less than 5% of the global population. And our foreign competitors are emerging rapidly. And America, we're shrinking, and we don't have enough intellectual capital nationwide to compete and maintain where we are globally against our global competitors.
And so what you've just told is the essential story of the American dream, right? And not only, surpassing the low expectations, fighting for what you believe in, but really this idea of ownership. And I guess as we start to wrap
using our platform for the greater good.
That's right.
For the greater good. Like, I'm not here just to own platforms and make money. I'm here to make America better. I want us to have one America. One America. Make it better. You know, because Coretta Scott King, I bought the rights to the Coretta Scott King story because I wanted to look at Martin Luther King through her eyes, Martin Luther King's widow. And she said to me that, Byron, as Black people, we have four major challenges in America. Number one, end slavery. Number two, end Jim Crow. Number three, achieve civil rights. And number four, she choked up, the real reason they killed my Martin, achieve economic inclusion. She said, they didn't kill my Martin over the speech, I Have a Dream. She said, Byron, they killed my Martin over the speech, The Other America. And that was the speech he gave at Stanford University, where he said, there are two Americas. Two Americas won't survive. There's one America that has access to opportunity, capital, education. The other America doesn't. Two Americas won't work. We will perish if we don't bring it together and have one America. Well, that great prophet, Martin Luther King Jr., here it is unfolding 50 years later after he said it. We have to achieve one America. And once we achieve one America, then we can go on to the next level and achieve one planet. And after you achieve one planet and one America and one planet, then you can actually have a slice of heaven right here on earth. Because if you don't achieve that, then what you will have is a slice of hell right here on earth. And I'm committed to achieving one America and one planet and a slice of heaven right here on earth.
That's a powerful take on content creation. I know a lot of content creators don't even think that deeply about what they do, but that's literally what you're doing. I have to ask you about this idea of being independent again, because as we listen to your powerful story, that's really what stands out is that, you know, there's often opportunities to join bigger companies or sort of get in line with existing corporate structures, but you are able to build something independently, which is not an easy thing to do. And I imagine that your investors really like that. And it also gives you a lot of power, again, in terms of how you create content. So talk about navigating the, you know, independent business ownership in media and content creation.
Well, that wasn't much navigation. Me owning the company 100% was not about navigating. That's because I'm Black. That happened because I'm Black. Yeah. And as an entrepreneur who happens to be Black, I didn't have capital available to me. No one believed in me. No one was willing to invest in me. No, when I went to folks, I couldn't. First, the remarkable thing is that the first 15, 18 years of my company, I never had a bank loan. I had to use factors. I had to take my receivables from McDonald's and Johnson and Johnson and, you know, Pepsi, and I had to factor it, and they charged me 26, 27% interest. I couldn't get a bank loan. And no one would ever invest in me. And I went to a lot of people. At a certain point, I had to keep doing what I was doing. I had to keep smiling and dialing. I had to keep creating and selling my shows and producing my shows. And listen, I watched my white counterparts raise a lot of money, especially in the .com in 2000. You could put any idea, .com anything on a paper napkin and you raise millions of dollars. And then you did round one, round two, round three. Nobody offered me a penny. Now, if you really think about it, maybe you can count on one hand, maybe Black people who have raised money and bought anything of significance. The Black wealth in America is based on you're talented in sports, singing, acting, whatever it is, it's based on talent. Not a lot of African-American entrepreneurs have access to capital that's not predatory to buy businesses on large scale businesses. I am one of the first and only. That happened by accident. And what happened was my white counterparts, the way I describe it is, it's like going to the gym. You can make one guy go to the gym and bench press 50 pounds. And you can make another guy like me go to the gym and make me bench press 5,000 pounds. And I got to go and bench press 5,000 pounds. And my white counterpart only had to bench press 50. And what happens is when you get a little bit of headwind, unfortunately, and it is unfortunate, my white counterpart who didn't have to bench press very much, their businesses went down as they hit headwinds. I had to build this brick by brick. And so when I get headwinds, that's just every day for me. Because it's been headwinds since the day I was born and since the day I started the company. And
You're built for it.
I had to learn how to build this business where I don't have access to capital that's not predatory. So when I started to get access to capital, it was almost like it was on steroids, because it was like, wow, well, you went the first 20 years working off of air. Well, now that we're actually putting something in here, you're taking off like a rocket, is really what's happening. It
Right.
wasn't by design. I would have loved to have had partners. Are you kidding me? There were years where I didn't, literally, I was not eating and skipping meals. They were turning off my phones and I was calling people from a payphone. My home went in and out of foreclosure. I don't even know how many times. It went up 14 times. I mean, my credit was so bad, people wouldn't take my cash. I mean, it was bad. So I would have loved to have had, capital support. But that's a big problem in America, especially, and there's a huge amount of African American entrepreneurs who suffer from that, do
Right.
not have access to capital.
But you have investors now, right? These
I
investors
don't
who are
have, I still don't have
excited.
now I have
Right.
scales. I don't have investors. I have bank loans, but I
Right.
don't have investors because we have enough scale in our cash flow and we're just gobbling up businesses.
Mhm.
We're very acquisitive now. We're buying businesses. It was just one of those things where, those first 20 years, it was like, okay, well, I had nothing. So now that we have it now, it just happened that way. It was
Mhm.
because of the pushback. I was never, and if you look around, none of my Black counterparts can't point to anybody that has access to capital that's not predatory. But that's
Mhm.
part of the systemic racism that we talk about in America that we're addressing. And that's fine. We're gonna address it. We're gonna get there. And that's what Coretta told me was the fourth and final chapter. That was people have to understand that a lot of this that we're dealing with in terms of race, it's really about economics. And we have to deal with that. And that's why I've said, I wrote an op-ed that's at the Griot, and it sits there, a message from Byron Allen. And I said, and in that op-ed, it says, Black America speaks, America should listen. And I talk about what we need to do to never come back here again. And the very first thing I said is, please, please, please don't make this the Black Lives donation movement. Don't donate. That's in itself is racist. It's saying I'm superior, you're inferior, you can't keep your head above water unless I donate and save you. I don't need saving. I need you to just be respectful and address our relationship in a respectful way where we do it in a partnership. You don't need to save me, you just need to get out of my way. That's really, and I think that's how you want to address. And the other thing, as I said, these chairmen and CEOs, they need to be the chief diversity investment officer. Invest and tap that talent. Okay. There were a lot of people who could have hired me, but they never looked at me that way. So I had to build it myself. And what you'll find, especially in the Black community, a lot of African American entrepreneurs, because I grew up watching my grandfather, he built a skating rink brick by brick, but he had 9 kids. So this is how he took care of his family. And he employed my dad and my uncles and my aunts. And when I walk through my old neighborhood in Detroit and you look at all the unbelievable entrepreneurs who had to create businesses to take care of themselves and take care of their families, that was what I saw. I just did it on a global scale.
Mhm.
And then I saw on my mom's side, that blue collar, where my granddaddy went to Great Lakes Steel every day for over 30 years, never called in a day sick, got to work an hour early every day, and drank really bad coffee. I grew up watching my dad go to Ford Motor Company over 30 years, this blue collar, where it was like, how do we put 36 hours in a 24-hour day? And how do we build something to really grow our communities and really take care of our families?
Yeah.
That's what I saw every day.
And it's as you said, you build up this strength, right, because of the challenges that are come your way. But talk about the freedom in content creation, because again, you have a freedom that a lot of people don't have that opportunity.
Yeah, and I love that. And I say, look, I say, it's the pushback, the systemic racism, the lack of inclusion, it's all, a part of my success, because that pushback made me stronger, more resilient. And it forced me to think of things 40 different ways versus my competitors only had to think of it 5 different ways. I don't appreciate the reason why I had to go through it, but I appreciate how much better and stronger it made me.
Right.
It's
And creative, because you maximize. I love when you tell the story of how you maximize going on shoots. You know, a lot of producers and television producers may think of content in this very singular way, but you would send people out with multiple visions for a shoot and different ways to cut that content up, right?
when you don't have access to capital, you're going to figure out, just like you're a poor person, a poor Black person in Detroit, you're going to figure out how to take a penny and make it look like $10. That's just not what happens when you're poor. So what I said to when I read in the New York Times that Verizon was going to invest over $23 billion to bring fiber to the home and offer 150 HD channels, I said to them, I went to them, I said, I want to give you guys 10 channels. They go, how many channels do you have now? I said, 0. They said, whoa. They go, what are you thinking? I said, well, my daddy worked at Ford Motor Company for over 30 years. My granddaddy worked at Great Lakes Steel for over 30 something years. And these guys were always trying to literally put 36 hours in a 24-hour day. When I did the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson, I was 18 years old. It got me a number of offers, and I'm very numerical. And I said, you know what? At that time, there were 3 networks, ABC, NBC, and CBS. I said, there's only 66 hours of primetime TV. I'm going to go with the 1 hour that's different from the other 65 hours. And that's this show called Real People. It's a unique format. It's a reality show. We've never seen real people in prime time. It's
the original reality show.
The original reality show. It's going to be on Wednesday nights at 8 o'clock. I said, I was 18 years old. And instinctively, I said, I think this show's going to work. And I think it's going to work long enough to get me through USC film school so my mama doesn't have to pay for it. So I'm going with this one because I think it's got enough gas in its tank to take a burden off my mama. So I go with Real People. Bam, Real People takes off, goes to #1, changes the face of television, gives birth to reality. Now almost all of TV is reality television. And I said, but when I was out in the field making these stories for Real People, what I noticed, I was out in the field with these field producers and these crews, and they were trying to figure out how to shoot for 2 hours and get paid for 12. And I'm like, that's not my DNA. That's not my wiring. I'm not going to shoot for 2 and try and figure out how to get paid for 12. I'm trying to figure out how do we shoot 36 hours a day. So what I said was, when I send my crews, my producers to Pebble Beach to shoot the car show, Concourse d'Elegance, for our 24-hour car network, cars.tv, I want them to also shoot the resorts up there for our travel channel, mydestination.tv. Shoot the chefs up there in Pebble Beach for our cooking channel, recipe.tv. Shoot what's going on in the pet community up there for our pet channel, pets.tv. And shoot all the movie stars that come up there for our entertainment channel, es.tv. And you know, they said to me, wow, we've heard a lot of pitches. That is very clever. They said, you know what? We're not going to give you 10 networks. We're going to give you 6. And with the stroke of a pen, we made history, and we launched 6 24-hour HD networks. And then we went back and we launched the 7th with our court shows. And that's how I approached the business. I said, I want to bring that blue collar, Henry Ford, Andrew Carnegie, John D. Rockefeller of thinking vertical and horizontal integration and production, and more or less just streamline it. And I want to bring that efficiency to content, because content doesn't have that efficiency. And I had to learn to do that because I didn't have access to capital. And that's what has started that. And then I kept putting shows and shows on, and now we have over 65 shows. Now we have a portfolio of 10 networks. Now we have our streaming services, the Grio and Local Now. And, I can't do anything but create and sell and build. Just like my dad would build computers and my dad would build cars, I can't do anything but build, and I can't do anything but sell and create. It's just like breathing, and I love it. And I haven't had a job since I quit my paper route when I was 12 years old.
It's an amazing story. Your passion, you can feel it jumping through the screen. I hope that all of the members of Natpe feel that passion and, you know, are inspired by the work. And again, we just thank you for sharing about the way that you have weathered the storms, you know, throughout different challenges over time, but also why there's so much hope and opportunity right now in content creation and in streaming, and so many opportunities that are coming about at entertainment studios and Allen Media Group. So congratulations, Byron, and thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. And everybody just needs to know one simple thing. You are so fortunate to be alive and well and living during these times. You have a huge opportunity, and understand that this is transformational, and you are leading the way, and you're the best ones to lead the way. And you are, you know, if you produce content or aggregate content, you're hugely valuable and you're much needed. And you're going to see changes that are just going to be for the greater good, and unbelievable efficiency. And before I forget, I just want to say, you know, I love you to certain people who are no longer with me, or won't no longer with us. I want to say that, and some are. My first Natpe was 1981, and this is my 40th one. This is my 40th consecutive one. I've gone every year physically, obviously not this year. And I went to my first one. I was 19 years old, January of 81. And it was there that I met Al Massini, who created Entertainment Tonight and Star Search and Lifestyles of Rich and Famous. And he became like a second father to me. And he really helped teach me the business. Roger King, love, love, love Roger and Michael King, the King family, unbelievable human beings. Dick Robertson, the people, Arnie Kleiner, Art Moore. I mean, the list goes on and on. The people who have been kind to me, gracious to me, opened doors for me in a tremendous way. Dave Smith. When I first started dealing with Dave Smith at Sinclair, he had two stations, one in Baltimore and one in Pittsburgh. I mean, unbelievable. I mean, like, it's family to me, Natpe, and the people who I've met there, and I love with my heart. You know, you know that some are with us and some are not. I mean, literally, Massini changed the face of television by creating Entertainment Tonight.
Right.
And the King brothers and what they did. And I have to just share this story. I know this is an important story because this has never been shared before. And I'm going to share a story about Natpe, and I want to share this really quickly. I'll tell you a story. Roger King called me up and he says, Byron, I want you to pitch me. And I was in LA and I just started my company. And I went to New York to pitch him. And he said, I heard you were a great salesman. He says, wow. He goes, after I pitched him, he says, you really are a great salesman. He says, there's only one salesman better than you. And I said, who's that, Roger? He says, my daddy. He says, my daddy was the greatest salesman ever. He says, my daddy would have loved you because he loves great salesmen. And he opened up his drawer and he pulled out a tie and he said, this tie belonged to my daddy. He would have loved you. I want you to wear it. He says, oh, by the way, I was about to leave. I thought, okay, he just wanted me to pitch him. He says, by the way, he goes, you've been calling people from your dining room table asking them to carry your TV show, right? I go, yeah. He says, well, I play golf with these guys and a number of them have been joking about how they're never going to do business with you because you're black. And he says, I didn't like that. He goes, I don't like that. He goes, I don't even know why they think they could say that to me. He goes, my mama and daddy didn't raise me and my sisters and brothers like that. He goes, they're just joking about how you call them out of town all the time and they're never going to do business with you because you're black. He says, so I'm having my birthday party at my beach house, my estate, and I've hired Elton John to perform and the Four Tops and the Sarducci brothers. They're going to do a fireworks show and I want you there because everybody who owns and operates a TV station is going to be there and I want you there. And I said, okay. I changed my ticket. I couldn't afford to change it. I go to his beach party, thank God. He had me at the list. I walk in and he gives me this big old bear hug and he goes, Byron Allen. He says, now the party can start. And he comes over and he gives me that big old beach hug, big old bear hug. And everybody who owns TV stations are in his backyard and in his house. And he's the most powerful man in TV. He owns Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, Oprah, on and on and on. And he whispers in my ear, he goes, who here is not returning your calls? And I said, everybody? He goes, watch this. And this guy was getting some guacamole and chips. He goes, hey, Bob, put down the guacamole and chips. Come over here and talk to me. And he says, do you want to renew Wheel of Fortune, Jeopardy, and Oprah? And the guy sheepishly said, of course I do. He says, well, call Byron back and then I'll figure out how much I'm going to charge you for those shows. And he went through the party and he took me through the party and he said this to everybody. And then he got on the microphone and he says, we have Elton John, we have the Four Tops, and we have Byron Allen here, the hardest working man in show business. He said, I want everybody here to take his call and work with him because he's a great guy and he's such a hard worker and he's going to do great things. Natpe is the reason I met people like that. And when you think about the integrity of people like Michael King and Roger King and how they were integrating this industry before it was even a word, and he just said, this is how my mama and daddy raised me. I just want to give my tribute to people like Al Massini, who didn't have to adopt me, and Dick Robertson, and Michael and Roger King, some of the best people I've ever met in my life. Art Moore and Arnie Kleiner, who put me on the board of Children's Hospital. Natpe, I love you with all my heart. We're an amazing community, and every day we only get better. I love you.
Perfect note to end on. Thank you so much, Natpe family, for joining. And again, thank you, Mr. Byron Allen, for sharing your story.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning into our interview with Mr. Byron Allen. We hope you enjoyed every minute of it. And we'd like to invite you to watch the entire conversation. You can see it later today on demand on the Natpe website.
Thank you so much, Byron and Natasha. We have a lot more coming up. Do we get a lunch break here? No? No lunch break. We're just going straight through? Okay, we'll be right back after these short messages.